This is Actualize Freedom, straight talk on growing clicks and conversions on Amazon FBA from people doing it every day. Now here's your host, digital marketing acrobat, Danny Kenji Carlson.
What's up, guys? Danny Carlson here with Actualize Freedom Podcast, and today we have a little bit different of an episode. This is actually someone that I know personally quite well, and he is one of the most interesting cases I've ever seen when it comes to business. He has gotten his hands dirty in a wide variety of businesses, some incredibly successful businesses doing multiple millions of dollars per month. And he currently is selling on Amazon. So while most of my episodes are specifically focused on Amazon, we will go into a bunch of Amazon stuff here. This one is going to be more focused on the entrepreneurial journey of just really an aspiring entrepreneur that I've got the chance to know here. So welcome to the podcast, Mr. Mario Miele. How's it going, man?
Fantastic. It's Milanovic, actually, but Miele is my nickname, so it's fine. Good to see you, Danny. I know you're in, I think you're in Bali right now. Is that correct?
Yeah, man. Out here in a beautiful Bali, just enduring the sweat for the awesome community of digital nomads and everything out there. And you are joining us from Belgrade, Serbia, too. Why did you decide to go live out in Belgrade, of all places?
Bit of a long story, but I was originally actually born here lots of years ago, and I left as a baby, actually, and didn't come back for 25 years, and they had a pretty, crazy history with, bombing and NATO and all this kind of stuff, and never really wanted to reconnect with this place for whatever reason. I'm not really sure. Well, the bombing would do it, I guess. But, and then, then about 4 or 5 years ago, I had the opportunity to have dinner with the king and the queen princess of Serbia, which was kind of a cool thing. And they invited me to their little big white palace and all that kind of stuff. And it was not because I was some, big guy or anything like this, but I donated a bunch of money to a children's foundation here in Serbia, and they invited me, and that was kind of cool. And out of that developed kind of a mini friendship, I suppose. And it was the first time I had been back in 25 years, and I realized that it's a really cool place. It's kind of like, backwards, but real authentic and true. And people are more concerned with, surviving, so to speak. It's a very poor country. It's one of the poorest countries in Europe, rather than, worrying about what temperature the cafe latte is, right? So it was really cool. I felt that I needed a little bit of a contrast in my life. I think I became too comfortable in the West, so to speak, and I wanted to throw myself into a little bit of a, grittier, real atmosphere. So I started coming a couple times a year, and about a year ago, after my Thailand trip, I decided to stay for the whole year and make it my base, and take weekend trips to Rome and Estonia and Germany, Berlin, and all that kind of stuff. So it's pretty cool. I like it. I think my time here is coming to an end, and we'll see where I'm gonna go set up base next.
Yeah, man. So there is a million different places that we could start off when it comes to your entrepreneurial experience. But one thing I've always enjoyed in my conversations with you is just your attitude towards kind of like surrendering to whatever is going to happen, not trying to just like force something to happen, just being open to cool opportunities coming your way. And you're saying that right now about not really sure where you're going to go. You feel like you should maybe be leaving Belgrade. Maybe give us an example of when you're starting to realize the power of just surrendering to whatever is going to happen. It could be, the start of one of your business ventures, or is there any particular example that comes to mind?
Totally, yeah. So I think, as a man, the word surrender is really a kind of an ugly word. We're supposed to be warriors, and we're supposed to like go after things and bring home the bacon kind of thing. So I really never understood that title. And then I read a book called The Surrender Experiment, and it blew me away. It was absolutely crazy how this guy in, I think it was 1971, decided to just kind of check out and just say yes to anything that comes his way. It's an unbelievable story. And fast forward 40 years, he's sitting on a private jet, going to sell his company to WebMD for $1.2 billion. And, you know, I never really associated surrender with business at the time. And so I listened to the book, probably listened to it about 20 times. And I realized that rather than fighting things and trying to manipulate and control things, which, you know, in business, that's all we ever want to do, or at least I did. What if I use the power of the universe to make things happen, so to speak? So, you know, I mean, it doesn't mean you don't have goals. It doesn't mean you don't want to, you know, set some type of monetary, you know, goal. It doesn't. It just means that rather than you thinking that you know it all, allowing, and when I say universe, I mean, it sounds woo-woo and all this, but, you know, call it a higher power, call it God, call it whatever you want to call it. It's something. I mean, I can't explain. I don't think anybody can. But if you allow and not resist, and that's a big word as well, is resisting things. You know, your ego kicks in all the time. Your ego is like, hey, no, I don't want to do this. And, you know, and then I started also meditating, which I know you do as well, and just quieting that inner voice and allowing things to happen. And the more I did that, the more easier my life really got. And you know, I mean, obviously in the beginning, you don't believe it. You know, you think you know it all and all this. And I think it's a practice. I think it's something that just doesn't happen overnight. I think it takes, you know, probably your whole life to develop. But I think that there's definitely something to it. And at least in my case, my life became easier, which is and happier. And I like it. I think it's the way to go. So I don't know if that explains it in a nutshell, but that's basically where I came from.
Yeah. And so like after reading The Surrender Experiment, which by the way, I have read that book about twice now, and it is an amazing book. I recommend it to anyone who looks at this kind of stuff as a bit woo-woo, as just a good case study of what it can do to someone's life. And you don't have to explain it, right? You don't have to believe in woo-woo or the universe or whatever there to realize that there is something there. So after reading the book, what was something that just started to happen from this whole practice of changing your mindset and the meditation?
Well, I'm not sure that I can actually define anything as happening, but I think my state of mind is just different. I think it's just that I don't take things as seriously anymore. I definitely don't get as upset about things not happening the way they do. It doesn't mean that you don't get upset. You get upset, but you're not upset for weeks. You know, it's not like, you know, you're carrying this burden with you. You know, so literally in 1 or 2 minutes, I let go of things. So it really helped. I think in business, just because there's always, as an entrepreneur, you have hurdles. You know, it seems like it never ends. It's, you know, it's this whole thing about, you know, 6 feet from gold, right? It's like, am I really 6 feet from gold, or am I 1 foot from gold, or am I, you know, 100 miles from gold? Like, I don't know. All I do know is that I'm not stressing about it anymore as much as I used to. And so I think as a philosophy, I think that encompasses everything that I do now.
Awesome. And I do want to dive into a couple specific examples of businesses you have built. So let's start with the Amazon. Since most of the people listening to this podcast are Amazon sellers, they might be interested to know that at one point you had the number 1 and number 2 products in the kitchen category on Amazon. And anyone who sells on Amazon would know exactly how big of a deal that is. Can you tell us how did that come about?
Yeah, it was crazy actually. Well, I started Amazon in 2012, 2013, something like that. And I went to China actually with a group of people, 30 of us, and we basically toured a bunch of factories and you know, got to meet a lot of people over there and all that. And anybody that really sells on Amazon, I highly recommend that you go and visit your factories. I think something like 0.01% of any of the sellers on Amazon around the world go visit the factories, which I was surprised. And the relationship that you can create with the owners is incredible. They will treat you like gold. I mean, my experience has been incredible. And, you know, you hear about China and you don't really know and all this. And I was super surprised. I mean, the factories there are from literally primitive people sitting on the ground with no chairs, working who knows how long, to the most sophisticated machines that I've ever seen in my life. So I think it's good to go and visit your factory, and it's good to see whether, you know, there's actually, like, I don't know, kids working in your factory, you know, I mean, you know, nobody wants to talk about it, but that happens a lot over there. So I think as a ethical businessman, I think you owe it to yourself to go over there and actually check out either it's a potential one or the one existing one. So it was amazing. I really liked it. I connected with a lot of Chinese owners, and it was a great trip. Yeah, you know, I started on in the silicone baking ware business and brand. Actually, I had two brands. One was that, another brand was higher end HDMI cables and audio video equipment and that kind of thing. So I didn't know which brand was going to take off. I didn't know if anyone was going to take off. So I basically created two that were completely different. And the baking one, yeah, it took off. I you know, I did some promotions and whatnot. And I still remember I was driving my car and, you know, checking the stats as we all do, refreshing every hour, every minute, whatever it is. And all of a sudden, I remember having I had I don't know, 10,000, no, it was 1,000 sales, and I refreshed and it was 1,500, and it was like literally just, it wouldn't stop. I think I ended the day at something like 15,000 units. And I first of all, I thought something was wrong. You know, I was like, what's going on here? You know, am I giving away free product here? You know, did I press the wrong button or whatever it is? And no, it wasn't. Then interesting enough, literally a week later, maybe 10 days later, actually, I was in the Philippines. I was just traveling there. We had a small office there, outsourced office, and Amazon called me and said, "Hey, we want your product." And I was like, "Wow, okay." You know, so they do have flags internally where when you perform at a certain level, and it doesn't have to be, you know, years or months. I mean, this was literally a matter of weeks where they called me and they said, "Listen, we want to represent your product," which is obviously Amazon Vendor Central. So that's another story itself, but that's basically how it happened. So it was pretty cool. It was interesting.
Yeah, and then so what happened with the Vendor Central program? What happened after that point?
Well, it was funny because I didn't really care about it because I'd heard a bunch of people that had bad experiences, and so they, we started negotiating, and they said, "Well, you know, we're going to order 1,000, 2,000." I said, "No, I'm sorry, my minimum order is 50,000." And I just threw it out because I didn't really care whether they accepted or not. And there was a silence on the other side. They're like, "No, in the history of Amazon, we've never, bought more than 5,000 units on a first order." And I said, "Well, I don't care." Anyway, so I hung up, and they called me back, I think the next day, and they said, "Okay, well, we really want your product, and how do we make it happen?" Anyways, in the end, I think it was a 21,000 unit order, which was the first order, which they told me was, you know, a historic event for them. So anyways, that was good. That was really good. That was great. Made a lot of money on that order. However, a few months later, because Amazon was growing so fast, this was like 2014, I think, they didn't have their shit together. And they were, at the time, I don't know if they do it now, they were using some type of computer system algorithm to price all their items. And they started mispricing my item, and they kind of screwed it up, actually. They all of a sudden, I went from, they doubled my retail price, which obviously affects the sales. And so I had a little bit of conflict with them over that. And in the end, we resolved it. I flew down to Seattle. I met with them, and which is another great thing. So if you're selling on Amazon and you're doing, you know, any kind of volumes, go and make an appointment and see them down there. The headquarters is incredible. I mean, it's just like, wow. It's like a whole city, you know? So it's pretty cool. I highly recommend it.
Awesome, man. And currently on Amazon, what what are you focusing on right now? I know that Amazon is just one of the things that you're really doing. You kind of have been doing it for a while. So like, where has your focus been going on these days since all the craziness?
Well, actually, funny enough, about 3.5 years ago, I was approached by a company to help them market a cereal. And, I at first was like, what's so special about the cereal? And I said, well, we've kind of made this formula and we want to, create a brand. And the brand was really funny, actually. It's called Poop Like a Champion. So I was like, this is kind of funny, right? So anyways, long story short, that was 3.5 years ago. And became, food products are a little different. There's different laws, there's different things. And so we created this brand, which is really amazing. And so a couple years later, I realized that my partners were not, pulling their share of work. And at that point of time, I bought them out. I partnered up with another incredible person in San Francisco. And together now, we're going to create the number one high fiber brand in the world. That's our goal. And we're in the process right now actually of expanding, adding products. And it goes to actually, I think right now, and I think the thing about Amazon is that it's becoming so ultra competitive. It's crazy. I mean, so I think the way around that is to have a brand that nobody can copy. I mean, look, can anybody create an audio video cable brand? Of course, just call it whatever you want. But what's unique about it? What's really unique about it, right? And so I think if you actually create a brand, it's not just a matter of, going to 99 Designs, whatever it's called, and creating a logo, and now I got my brand. That doesn't necessarily work anymore. I mean, it could, but overall, I feel that that's not the deal anymore. The deal is to really create a brand that actually stands for something. And that, again, goes to what are you passionate about? Am I passionate about pooping? No, but, it's funny, right? But I mean, we're talking about a product which, people don't want to talk about, in my case, and adding humor to it is really kind of like an icebreaker, right? So I think the brand in itself that I'm working on is kick-ass. And so I think I'm going to focus my next 2, 3, 4 brands on brands that actually stand for something, whether it's, me that comes up with it or somebody else. So, I mean, there's a lot of ad agencies out there that are super creative, and yeah, they're expensive and all that, but there are some really, really, really creative people out there that can kick some ass with brands, So I think that definitely can give you an edge on Amazon. And as Amazon is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and as Amazon is creating their own brands, they have, I don't know how many, 22, 23 internal ads now that, people don't even know about. You can't compete with Amazon because they'll make them add-on items, $1.99 if you buy whatever, $40 worth of other shit, right? So it's becoming different now, I think.
Yeah, and this product is like, it's not only has amazing branding, like Poop Like a Champion is a great brand name, and I love the box too. It's like a box of cereal sitting on top of like this Roman pedestal up in the air. It looks it looks all crazy, but it's actually a proprietary product too, right? Like it is essentially impossible or very difficult for anyone else to find or even create a cereal like yours. Like what you went through to actually design that product is very difficult to copy. So how much effort did it take? Like how much back and forth, how many months did it take to actually create a product that was totally unique in the food industry?
Probably 6 to 12 months. There's a lot of, like I said, FDA approvals. You have to find a factory that can make a product. With us, the difficulty was getting that much fiber into that little of, and it's a cereal, of course. You look at products like Fiber One. Fiber One's got like, I don't know, 2-3 grams of fiber, and the rest is sugar. But we, for us to, insert 16 grams of fiber was literally a chemical experiment, right? So it was interesting because, the factory had never done it. And so we had to go fly down there and meetings and back, and like you said, back and forth and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, I suppose it's a front end loaded situation where you really work your ass off for the first 6 months, 12 months. And then, once you put it on Amazon, I mean, now you can focus on marketing. Now you can focus on some of the other things, right? So I guess, 6 to 12 months.
Yeah, and if you guys are having troubles pooping out of your butthole, then definitely go purchase some Poop Like a Champion off of Amazon. And so let's talk about now. So this is a really, truly incredible story that, when I heard this for the first time, just in our chats, like I was pretty blown away, because I've never heard someone who's gone through something just like a huge up and then a huge down, something like this. So can you tell us about the story of the affiliate marketing business that you had?
Yeah, no problem. So, I mean, I've been online for, since the 90s kind of deal, and programming, that kind of stuff. And I became, by chance, really, an affiliate marketer. And I hired a couple of really smart people, engineers, with me, and studied it, and basically became one of the top 3 affiliate marketers in the world. This was in 2008, 9, 10. And we developed internal software that basically tracked sales and conversions and, split testing, thousands, if not tens of thousands of landing pages and all that kind of stuff. And, and we took off, and the amount of money that was being generated in that field was just mind blowing. I remember, we flew into New York, and took the helicopter into Manhattan, and I was like, "What's going on?" Like, what about James Bond? And we had these meetings. We had set up these meetings with about 30, 40 companies that wanted to represent their product, and they wanted us. In essence, we became media buyers. So became really good at buying media.
So like dietary supplements were the things that you're affiliates for, right?
Yeah, dietary supplements, and there was there was probably 10, 20 different things, but dietary supplements seem to have the largest margins, and so we really excelled, and we started making 7 figures a month, which was crazy, and we were on an upward trajectory, which it became kind of worrisome, to tell you the truth, because there was only like 3 of us, or maybe 4. And, that type of money that was being generated was kind of scary, I mean, I was like, what are we going to be, a Forbes 100 company in like 2 years? Like it's crazy. And so one day we got served by the Federal Trade Commission. And what had happened was the companies, and there were so many of them that we basically drove traffic through, a lot of them wouldn't take people off auto credit card billing. And so a lot of them weren't even in existence anymore. So people complained that they couldn't get off these credit card billings and all that kind of stuff. And, and there was a lot of consumer complaints that came in because of that. And, the regulators basically go to the top, and, it's like, well, can't find the companies. Who's the next? Well, affiliate companies, and they were sued, and then they went into, well, who is the top? We're the top 10 guys in the world, right? That are doing this, and so they basically sued everybody. And there was 10 companies, including Google, that got sued, and there was, I think, a $13 million lawsuit, and it took probably $1 million in legal fees and all that kind of stuff. At the end of the day, it was more taxing on me psychologically than really the money that was paid out in the end. I settled in the end. I had to sell a bunch of penthouses, that kind of stuff, and Maseratis and Ferraris and all that crazy stuff. And and that was kind of like, well, wow, I mean, I had this crazy ride, and it was like the second time I had made that type of money. The first time was in real estate in the early 2000s. What are we doing here? Are we just, are we? Is this the whole thing? Just make money and buy shit, And so I think at that time it was one of those crises that you go through, and basically, am I a bad person? Am I a bad entrepreneur? Like, Like nobody saw that I had to work 20-hour days, 22-hour days for like 3 years. I mean, it jolted at my relationship. It jolted at my friends. My health was going down. It was just kind of crazy, right? Developing these things and putting, millions of dollars at risk and creating and actually, providing employment, secondary employment, primary employment and secondary employment to a lot of people. Nobody saw this. It's just like, well, there's this lawsuit and it's civil and all that. And, so then I realized and I looked at, successful people. I mean, almost every successful person in the United States has been sued, from Warren Buffett to, Elon Musk to Trump. He gets sued by the FTC weekly, it seems, but whatever. He's kind of a different case. So anyway, it was a reckoning. And I basically then realized, look, I got to look inward. I really have to see like what makes me happy. Is it money? Is it trophies? What is it? And so that's basically the time when I started developing, call it the spiritual side, And I said, okay, can I really be an enlightened spiritual entrepreneur, but at the same time still have drive to just make a shitload of money? And the answer absolutely is yes.
And how would you rate like your overall satisfaction level after that point? And like, let's say the point that you were making just, millions of dollars and you had the Ferraris and the Maseratis and all that stuff. Like comparatively, what is your satisfaction level of life?
It doesn't compare. You're satisfied when you're making that type of money, but the satisfaction for me at least was kind of like, look, Dad, I made it. Look, my friends, like, look at the car I'm driving. Look at this. It wasn't for me in a way. It was, it was more for other people, which is kind of fucked up, right? And now, or the last 5 years, it's been more like, I don't really care anymore. It's like, I've been there, I've done that, and now it's more like, look, I just want to be happy. And I think that whole thing is, completely not dependent on money. Absolutely not. And that's the big realization that I had. So it's definitely a lesson that I learned. And I think, everybody will learn it eventually. So, that's what happened for me.
And one more thing I want to talk about is you have a really interesting theory about ego. You have been through so many of these big ups and downs. You've like had these amazing business successes over and over and over and over, but also a lot of really hard crashes. They come crashing down. And I think you have a really interesting opinion on how the ego interplays into that. So maybe let's talk a bit about that.
Well, I mean, the ego is there for a purpose, and the purpose is to keep you safe, or at least think to keep you safe. So if you follow your ego, for example, with money, it's impossible to satisfy it, because, basically you're saying, well, once I get the $1 million, I'll be happy because I'll be able to buy all this shit. And then immediately, like hours later, it's like, well, wait a second. No. I can't live on $1 million a month. I need $2 million a month. And then you hit $2 million a month. And then it's like, no, well, I really can't. I need a private jet. I need this. So the ego will just keep going higher and higher and higher and higher and higher, and will never stop, basically, right? So the key and the secret to it is to basically acknowledge it exists, and absolutely through meditation bring down this chatter, because the chatter is what really kills everybody, right? That's what gives you anxiety. That's what gives you worry. That's what gives you doubt about, can I do it? Am I really able to do this? I mean, how in the world can you be making, $2 million a month and think that you're a loser? Like, what's that all about? That's crazy, right? Especially for an entrepreneur. So the understanding of the ego, for me at least, was that, hey, you know what? He's there and that's it. I don't got to listen to this guy. I can choose to be happy. I can choose to be wealthy. I can choose to be anything before it actually even happens, And that's the whole be, do, have paradigm, which, I didn't get for many years. It's like, what do you mean? How am I going to be something before I do things, And it's a paradox. It's a really interesting paradox. So, whatever I want out of life, I can literally feel that ahead of it actually manifesting. And then it's like, well, I can have 100 million in the bank. Well, how does that make me feel? Well, it makes me feel like really safe, you know? Okay, well, let's feel that. And then the funny thing is that as soon as you feel that, it comes to you. And I can't explain it, man. I mean, it's like, it's crazy. But that's in essence what life's about, I think, is being able to control your thinking, allowing things to happen, and not sweating it, man. I mean, it's just like, you know, and not sweating it doesn't mean you got to be in Jamaica lighting up a joint. It doesn't, you know, which I used to think, hey, you know, like, well, you don't care about anything. That's not true at all. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, and to expand on that a little bit more too, for me anyways, the ego, whenever it's gotten a little bit inflated, you know, it's like maybe business is going really well, or you know, you just hit a big string of successes. Whenever I'm in that inflated ego zone, I start to make really dumb decisions, you know, just like, like everything is going to work, like I'm the shit. And you start to make stupid decisions because you think that like somehow you have achieved what you've achieved because you're somehow the shit, or you're awesome or something like that. And then you get slapped, right?
Yep.
So,
big time.
So like what do you think? Is it just meditating as much as possible, or like how can you really be conscious of that ego just creeping up? Because like with the success comes the ego, and like how do you separate yourself from that?
Right. Yeah. For me, it's been meditation. I mean, I know it's like a hot thing right now and all this, but I've been meditating for probably 5 years now, intensively for about 1.5 years. So every day, it's the first thing I do when I wake up. I have a glass of water, you know, go to the bathroom, go back to bed when I'm still groggy. And, you know, I meditate from, you know, 20 minutes to an hour every single day. And the days that I really don't want to do it, I do it even more, because that's the ego coming out saying, I don't need this shit. What is this? You know, like, why do I have to meditate? It doesn't make sense. But meditation for me has really given me a clear head and the ability to think and allow call it the universe to help me, because it's like it's crazy. Like going back 10 years ago, I was like, I used to think that I know everything. Like, you know, like you said, the ego kicks in. You're making a lot of money. You're doing anything you want to do. And then, like you said, you get slapped, you know, and I'm like, I don't want to get slapped anymore, or at least I realize when it's about to happen. And that awareness is worth more than $1 billion, man. That awareness is what it's all about, because it'll give you peace of mind. And that's really what we all want. Like, why do we want $1 million? We want to feel better. Well, can't I just feel better? Yeah, you can, you know, and the easiest way that I've seen, it's meditating, you know, and I tell all my friends, I tell all these people I meet, whatever it is, I don't care. It's like, do it or don't, you know. And the easiest way to do it is go to YouTube and do a guided meditation. There's a guy named Michael Seeley. He's really good. Start out there, and then, you know, and see where it takes you. You know, you know, you don't have to go and do a Vipassana 10-day, you know, thing. I mean, maybe you will. I'm not sure. I haven't done it, but you know, it's definitely the way to go.
Yeah. And I've seen so many benefits too of a little bit about what you're saying, of just being generally happier. Because if you're in business, if you're an entrepreneur of any kind, there's just an endless amount of shit that just constantly comes up and you could be stressed about. But I've noticed when I'm meditating at least 20 minutes every single day for a consistent amount of time, that those things don't really bother you that much. It's not like you're toning it out and saying like, oh, like everything's all good, pretending nothing is happening. That, because that's not good. That's going to make you go out of business. It's the things are happening, but they're not affecting your stress levels. They're not affecting anything else. And you can clearly make a good decision what is right for that. Because if you're super stressed out and you're just like freaking out about something, you're probably not going to make a good decision either. Like literally your brain's neurochemicals are all messed up, and there's blood going to the wrong parts of your brain or whatever, and you're going to start to make dumb decisions. So I would really mirror what Mario's saying about the meditation. So man, this is, I mean, we could keep going on a million different things on this, but there is one more thing that I want to tap into, and that is your business in the Philippines, where you had a lot of employees. And I want to ask you specifically about what you learned through that business, like why you don't like to work with so many employees.
Well, at the time, we had something like 52, 55 people. I mean, the primary reason is that, you're trying to scale. And I was sharing the office with a friend of mine at the time. And our goal supposedly was to have it work 24 hours a day, have like 200 people in there and just like, go crazy. What we realized is that, people are people and everybody has their issues and problems in this, and, and managers running off with, some woman and, so it sounded kind of cool and it was great. It was, it's kind of like, oh, I got an office in the Philippines. I'm big shot, right? No, the human element, at least for me, is it's just another aspect of business, which, you need a lot of either knowledge or somebody that really is committed to doing that part, like almost like an HR person, right? And honestly, I just, I feel that technology, at least for me, has been like, I've always been an early adopter. I mean, it's like one of the first guys that got an email in 95, whatever, I was like, first guy to, Jesus, it's going back so many years now, to be, on bulletin boards before the internet. I mean, all this kind of stuff, right? So I really like technology and I like replace, because, does a computer make mistakes? Of course. But you don't have this thing where people are calling in sick and they're, stealing and they're doing all these things. That's where we're going now. 10 years ago, nobody was really focused on that. Now you got AI and robots and all this coming up and everything. It's a different conversation now, But overall, it's not that I don't recommend it. I just think for me, I would rather make less money than have to deal with issues with employees. And so I guess that's the best way to put it.
So tell me if I'm hearing this correctly. It's like now because you've been through everything, right? You prefer, you're prioritizing your overall well-being and your happiness over like how much money could I possibly make out of this thing. So you're a guy who has a lot of opportunities coming his way on a consistent basis. Is that maybe the main criteria that you're looking at when these opportunities come your way, whether you want to say yes or no, just pass on it?
Yeah, I think it has to do with energy. So if it's somebody that I jive with, that I can have a beer with, that's the best. That's like number one, right? Before even any product or anything else and all this. Absolutely. And then also one of the things I've learned is that, focus your energy. It's like, don't do 10 things, it's just not, I used to want to do 100 things. Yeah, we're going to do everything, and I used to have restaurants and I used to own a hotel and, like 250 apartment complexes. It was just crazy, right? And it's like, your energy is like just going all over the place, So I think focusing on 1 to 3 things at any given time, if you can do 1, that's great. But 3 is probably the maximum, I would say. Not at the same time, maybe overlapping, 1 and then 2, 6 months later, a year later, whatever it is. I think that's really important. But yeah, it has to do, how much money do you really need? It was kind of funny. A year ago, I went to Thailand and I wanted to say, hey, what is it like to live like, I used to just hit resorts and hotels and, Mandarin Orientals and all that $1,000 a night kind of deal, right? I want to say, what is it really like to go to a third world country, rent an apartment, rent a scooter, and like, what is that like? Because I didn't know, I had no idea. And what I realized is that, well, you're spending a lot of time by yourself. That was the first thing. And people are not kissing your ass. Well, that was kind of cool in a way. And it allowed me to really feel people more, and it had nothing to do with money. I realized that, actually, I don't need a lot to live. And I'm sure that's similar for you being, traveling to the Philippines and Bali and all that. It's like, what do I really, really need? It's, well, I kind of need a place to sleep, and, I got to eat something, and, the rest is just kind of like, wow, because I used to think like, I can't live without a private jet. How do people fly first class? Like what's going on here, right? It's not the truth. And so that was a huge thing for me as well, right? It's like, I actually don't need a lot of stuff. And when you don't need a lot of stuff, man, it changes everything. I'm sure, what was your experience like to, moving from Canada, where people are having, what is it, straw shaming? You can't have a plastic straw, and people are, like up in arms about straws, and you're in the Philippines, where like the average salary is like what, $80 a month? Like it's crazy, right?
No, absolutely. And like, it is a really big contrast, because we lived close in the same area of Vancouver, where people, they walk around with a jacket that costs $800 and a bag that costs $500. And that's just kind of normal around that neighborhood, right? People are spending $5, $6, $7 on their morning coffee every single morning. And like, you kind of get sucked into that. You just like to fit in. You gotta look the part, right? If you don't have a lot of money, you probably look like you have a lot of money. And I don't like it. It feels kind of fake, right? And then you go to the Philippines, and people over there don't really care about anything except, okay, we got the bills paid. Now I'm just going to go do what I enjoy doing. Why would I try to work overtime to get more money? I got enough money. So I'm going to go do what I want to do. I'm going to go surfing, or I'm going to go do this. And that, to me, I think it's just such a better way to live. Like, why would you try so hard to go buy a bunch of shit to impress people that you don't even fucking like? Just strangers on the street that like you walk by and you don't even acknowledge, probably don't even look them in the fucking eyes. Yep. Why are you spending $1,000 on your fucking jacket just to try to look cool to them? No,
absolutely. I agree with you. And it's interesting. I think it has to be a balance. I think, I don't think I could live in a third world country year round. And I've decided I really don't want to live in a first world country year round. So I think and that goes back to Amazon, right? If you can make, I don't know, a couple $1,000 a month on Amazon, and it's on automatic pilot, I highly recommend go and live in Thailand, go live in Bali, go live in the Philippines, go live in Eastern Europe. It's incredible. It will blow your mind. It's just that contrast, right? You need contrast. There's no, you just can't, like they say, you can't have black without the white and all this, right? And contrast is a good thing, So for me, like I said, I've been here close to a year now, and it's been amazing. I've met incredible people, and nothing works here. It's like, just nothing works, and there's beauty in that, right? Because it's exciting, it's new, it's different, and I think that it'll be nice to be in a place where everything works for a little while, and it's again, it's the contrast. So I think Amazon, it provides a great platform to be able to do that, and it's like, call it whatever, digital nomad, all that kind of stuff. Call it whatever you want. Just go and travel, man. If you can slap together a couple $1,000, $3,000 a month, you can live like a king in the Philippines. $2,000 a month, you can live like a king in the Philippines and Thailand, right? It's crazy. The amount of money I was spending in Canada and the United States, it's insane. Like, what am I spending this money? Why is this burger $25? Why? And then you go to these places, it's like $1. And it's better, and it's non-GMO, and it's fresh. And anyways, it's great. I'm thankful for the internet and being able to make money on it. And like I said, I've been living online or making money online, 15, 16, 17 years now, which, man, it's great. It's awesome. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of dedication. And initially you think you're crazy and you want to go quit and go work at some stupid job that you're going to hate. Don't do it. Don't do it. Just persevere and just make it happen. Whatever it takes. That's basically like, my mantra. It's whatever it takes, and be happy. on this journey because there is no end. It's like there's this saying, there's no happy ending to an unhappy journey. And I love that. It's a really good saying.
Hell yeah, brother. Well, I think you'd really enjoy Bali, actually. And Canggu here is like, it has such a big foreign population here. It's such a big digital nomad entrepreneurial community that it definitely is still like a third world country, but it doesn't really feel like it. In Canggu, it's got very well established restaurants. It's got you can go to the Mac store and buy all this Mac stuff. You can go live a 100% expensive lifestyle out here if you really want. But you can still go down the street and have a big bowl of noodles for $1.50. You can still go get your laundry done for $2 from some lady down the street, right? So I think it's a really good mix for people who they want the more comfortable lifestyle, but they also want to go check out one of these cool Southeast Asian countries. So man, come out and visit out here one time.
Yeah, for sure. Sounds good. It sounds good.
Hell yeah, Mario. Well, I mean, I can always go for way longer on these kind of conversations. This is the kind of stuff I love to talk about. But where can people reach out to you if they want to follow you online or see more about what you do?
They can email me at mario@elitemail.org, or I'm on Instagram, Mario_Mila88, and I post some things on there. So yeah, that's pretty much the best places to get a hold of me. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm always willing to help out. I'm currently mentoring a bunch of young entrepreneurs here in Serbia, which is really fulfilling, and it's cool, So like I said, whatever you're doing and whatever you want to get to, just persevere and don't give up. That's my best advice.
Heck yeah, Mario. Well, it's a pleasure having you on here. And guys, if you want the show notes for this episode, go check out kenjiroi.com/blog. And then definitely reach out to Mario. Go follow him on Instagram. Really, really one of the most interesting entrepreneurs that I've had the chance to get to know. So definitely recommend following him. So until next time, guys, kick some ass.
Cool. Thanks, buddy. Later.
For show notes and resources mentioned in this episode, visit kenjiroi.com.